welcome to a special edition of Sound Off Extra here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off podcast, which you can listen to each and every Sunday. I am the Solomonster. This is your official NXT Takeover Brooklyn / SummerSlam 2016 review. I decided to sort of merge the two together. We'll give some quick NXT thoughts, and then we'll get into SummerSlam, which was a very polarizing show, trending more negatively than positively. So there's a lot to say about SummerSlam. I want to just thank everybody who came out to our meetup. We had our big meetup yesterday here in Brooklyn at the KBH Beer Hall, only a few blocks away from the Barclays Center. We partnered with Mania Crawl. I want to give a shout out to Jamie for all of his help in organizing the event. We had great turnout. Also a big thank you to Bill Apter, the legend, the man himself, for coming out. He was sort of our guest of honor. He was signing books and taking pictures, and it was very cool, I know, for a lot of people to be able to hear some old school stories from Bill Apter, who's been around for a long, long time. So I want to thank him again for coming out. Got to meet a lot of you guys, take pictures, talk wrestling. We'll definitely do more of these in the future. For sure, we're going to do one in Orlando for WrestleMania next year. Probably do a live show as well. So it was a good time. NXT Takeover on Saturday night. I was at the Barclays Center, back at the Barclays Center a year after last year's NXT Takeover show, which was a very special show. That was the show where Bayley beat Sasha in that classic match to win the Women's Championship. Could this year's show top last year's? I don't know if it did or not. It's a subjective thing, of course. I think overall as a show, this one was a little bit stronger. There was nothing on the show that was like Bayley and Sasha from the year before. But I thought those last three matches, especially the three championship matches, were very, very good. But just running through the card really quick here, you know, we had Austin Aries over No Way Jose in the opener. And that brought out Hideo Itami, because Aries was continuing his assault on No Way Jose. So Hideo Itami comes out wearing what appeared to be loafer shoes and no socks, a look that I guess only he could pull off. Barely. But he came out, and he and Aries went at it a little bit, and he ended up laying out Austin Aries with the GTS. And everybody in the building, all 13,000 people, I know they claimed on TV, I think, 15,000. They did that last year, too, but I think they can only fit 13,000 plus in there. Either way, it was a packed crowd. The building was full. And they came unglued when he hit this GTS. This GTS was something like 18 months in the making. And I was in the building in San Jose, and it was not televised, but they had their first big NXT show outside of Full Sail. It was the weekend of WrestleMania 31, and I was there, and he did hit the GTS on Tyler Breeze, and it was a much smaller building, but the place went nuts. But we had yet to see him hit that move on TV, and I am still convinced that had he not gotten hurt, the spot that Finn Balor got at the Beast in the East show in Tokyo last July, where he beat Kevin Owens for the championship, I'm convinced that was a spot that was originally designed for Hideo Itami. And then he would have hit the GTS on Kevin Owens in Japan at what I believe was Korakuen Hall. I believe it was. And it would have been a great moment, and it's a shame it didn't happen. But this was also a great moment. And anyway, so that was a hot way to start the show. We had the debut of Ember Moon, which was my first time seeing her in person. Really tiny. I was struck by how small she is. Her Wikipedia says 5'2". I questioned that. She looked like more like 4'11" out there from the second row where I was sitting. She had a match with Billie Kay. The match was nothing special. What was special was her finish, and I had heard about her finish and how cool it was. And I got to see it here for the first time, and basically she comes off the top rope and twists in midair and hits her opponent with a Stone Cold Stunner. And it was very impressive. It was the most impressive thing about the match. She got the win, and that was the debut of Ember Moon. So, like I said, not really much of a match, but with that finish, I think she will become quite popular. And then we had Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode had a very glorious entrance here at the Barclays Center. I don't know if this is the biggest crowd that Bobby Roode may well have performed in front of. Maybe he was on some international shows, or, I don't know if he ever wrestled in Japan. I don't know. But if it wasn't the biggest crowd, it certainly was one of the biggest crowds he's ever performed in front of. And let me just say this to all the TNA fans who got crabs in their underpants over the tweet that I posted. I posted a tweet when Roode came out. He had this great entrance where it was very similar to the entrance that Shawn Michaels had at WrestleMania 25 when he was up in the air on this giant platform or pedestal, whatever you want to call it, and he was kind of lowered. And I love that entrance too, where Shawn is kind of lowered from the heavens and Undertaker rises up from the depths of hell. I thought that was very clever. So Roode had a very similar type of entrance here where he was lowered from the ceiling. He was on this platform. He had a spotlight on him. He had that great theme song playing. And I sent out a tweet that said basically that Roode comes off as more of a star here in 2 weeks on the NXT roster than he did in 14 years working for TNA. And some people took that as just a pot shot at TNA, which I guess in a roundabout way it kind of was. I wasn't tweeting it to take a shot at TNA. I was just making a statement. And some people took that very personally. They got very upset. Oh, yeah, Solomonster. Let's forget he was the longest reigning champion, and let's forget his great title run. If you will recall, I was a big fan of Bobby Roode during that title run. I am well aware of Bobby Roode's title run in TNA. From the moment he first won the championship, James Storm had about a week with the title before Bobby Roode grabbed a beer bottle and smashed it over his partner's head and won the belt. I remember that very well. That was from the period where I was watching TNA every single week, when they were actually worth watching, and they may well be worth watching again now, but I've given them so many chances and there's so much wrestling now to watch every week. It's just not a priority for me. But believe me, I'm very much aware of Bobby Roode's run as a champion, and I was a big fan of his, as I was of his team with Austin Aries. I've been saying for a long time now that I hope he and Aries reunite their team on the NXT roster at some point. But if you actually read the tweet, all I said was he came off as more of a star than he did in TNA, which is 100% accurate. Bobby Roode was a star in TNA, but nothing he ever did in TNA, nor the way he was ever, the way he ever made an entrance in TNA, ever said superstar the way that his entrance did here in Brooklyn, coming down from that platform. That's all I was saying. I never said Bobby Roode is so much better in NXT than he ever was in TNA. I mean, when I posted that, he hadn't even wrestled his first fucking match on TV. So how could I even say something like that? The dude came off as a superstar with that entrance, with the lighting and the music and the platform. That's all I was saying. And it actually amuses me how defensive these people get. This is a fact. His presentation thus far has been top-notch. I thought the match itself was nothing special. I thought it was probably the second weakest match on the show behind the Ember Moon match. And that finish, Roode won with a fucking pump handle slam that they're apparently calling the Glorious Bomb. That finish is pretty fucking far from glorious. He needs to change that ASAP. I'll take the Roode Bomb that he did in TNA over this move any day of the week. But as far as the presentation of the whole thing and the fact that he actually won, which he should have, I thought that, this was top-notch stuff. I thought all three title matches on the show delivered, exactly as predicted on the podcast. The Revival retained over Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, who I thought for sure was turning on Gargano after that match. And he will. He will, believe me. It's only a matter of time. They don't call him the Psycho Killer for nothing. If I had a partner who called himself the Psycho Killer, I'd have eyes in the back of my head. I thought Bayley and actually before I even move on to the women's match, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to this match. This was a really just an excellent tag team match. And all I heard about in the weeks leading up to this event was all the live events on the circuit they have down there in Florida. These guys were just tearing it up, having the match of the night after night after night. And I can see why. These are two of the best teams in the world right now. It's amazing to me when the Revival was first really kind of coming together as a team, I didn't care because they were very bland. There was nothing about them that screamed special. There was nothing about them that screamed fun or personality. And to their credit and the credit of everybody who's been helping them at NXT and giving them the shot, I have done a complete 180 on these guys, and they've become, one of my favorite acts in the entire company. And I hope they can carry that momentum over when they go to the main roster. And, they don't just become another team, because these two guys together, they have great chemistry. They've developed a personality for themselves. They have the respect of the fans. And they put on great matches, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. And, of course, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa on their own are two tremendous professional wrestlers. So you put the two of them together, and, of course, they're going to be a great fucking tag team. And these four just great stuff. I don't know what else to say, but they deserve more praise, so I wanted to give it to them there. I thought Bayley and Asuka had a much better match than they did in Dallas. Bayley loses with a kick to the head, and then gets a standing ovation after the match. I think it's pretty clear she's on her way up to the main roster. Literally nothing left for her to do in NXT. Izzy, I want to mention this. I'm sure many of you are well aware of Izzy, the Bayley superfan. You see her a lot at Full Sail University. Izzy and her family were sitting basically in our row, just a few seats down from us. And WWE moved them to an aisle seat for Bayley's match. Actually, I think during the tag match is when they moved. And the guys, whoever was sitting in the aisle seats, got moved to our section for the match. So they must have been okay with it. I certainly hope they weren't kicked out of their seats just to put Izzy and her family in their seats. And when Bayley lost, I could see across where Izzy was sitting. And that kid was bawling her eyes out. She was just beside herself with grief when Bayley lost that match. And her family moved back to our section when the match was over. So they came right back to their old seats. And Izzy was still, as the show was ending, all through the Nakamura match, Izzy was inconsolable. It was incredible. Nobody could calm her down. And all I want is, I want Izzy to grow up and train to become a WWE superstar. And then she can team with her idol. She can team with Bayley. What a dream come true it would be for her. And then I want Izzy to turn on Bayley and beat the crap out of her. How great would that be? What a great story. One day this needs to happen. And the story is so simple. The story could be that all those times that Bayley lost, because Bayley was always the underdog, so believe me, Bayley has lost a lot more than she's won. And her last two matches, in fact, against Asuka, she's come up on the losing end. And the story could be that all those times that Bayley lost, it just scarred young Izzy for life. It blackened her innocent little soul. I'm telling you, there's a story. It may take about 10 or 15 years, and I don't know that Bayley doing this character at 40 years old would work. So I don't know what Bayley will be doing by the time Izzy is old enough, but there's a story here if they want to go for it. We had the main event, Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe for the NXT Championship. I thought Nakamura's violin entrance live, I don't know how it came off on TV. I haven't gone back and watched it yet, but live in the building, this was just tremendous. Part of me was kind of like, man, they should have saved that for WrestleMania. But you know what? At WrestleMania, what you saw here at the Barclays Center with the one violinist, just multiply that by 100. You'll have a whole full orchestra one day when Nakamura makes his entrance. And I hope when that time comes, whether it's next year or the year after, and I think a better chance of it being 34 than 33, but I hope when that time comes, and I don't remember the name of the band, I guess you would call them. There's a video up on YouTube that went up shortly after Nakamura made his debut and debuted his new theme music. And it was a female, again, I don't know her name, and she had, I think, other people with her, and she performed his theme song in violin form. So they had a violinist here on the show, but I know it wasn't her. I want those people, I want her to get the chance to perform, because they were tremendous in that YouTube video that I saw. So maybe one day at WrestleMania, they'll be the ones playing Nakamura to the ring. But this was tremendous. And the match itself was very good. I really don't have any complaints about it. It was a little slow early on, a lot of mat wrestling, but it picked up there at the end, very hard-hitting. Nakamura wins the championship with the Kinshasa, two Kinshasas in this match. And that last one from where we were sitting on the floor, It looked like it connected way more than it should have. Put it this way, there was no daylight between that knee and Joe's face. I thought for sure he broke his jaw. The referee threw up the dreaded X. A bunch of other referees came out to help him out of the ring. Apparently he's okay. He was just selling, and he's fine, so that's good. I think we probably get one more match between these two at the next TakeOver special, maybe in October, maybe with a stipulation. But then Joe needs to come up to SmackDown as quickly as possible. They could use him right now. And quite frankly, it's a joke that he's even still in NXT. I mean, it's a joke in a lot of ways that Nakamura's in NXT, but they need some big names. So I get that. You know, he's the champ. He'll be down there for a while. Fine. Joe needs to come up. Okay, after the rematch, he needs to make his way up because it's time. It's time. They need him. He deserves a shot. I think it will happen, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. So NXT TakeOver Brooklyn overall, total thumbs up. Excellent show overall from top to bottom. Some weak stuff on the undercard, but it's the undercard. You know, the three main matches, the three title matches all delivered. Bobby Roode's entrance was tremendous. The GTS was a great moment. It was, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, perfect length, didn't overstay its welcome. I can't say the same for SummerSlam. SummerSlam, this was a very weird show. When I left the arena, I left with a very bitter taste in my mouth. I agreed with the majority of the people in our poll. Last I checked, we had well over going on 2,400 votes. And counting, it was 39% thumbs up, 61% thumbs down. And having had a chance to kind of get some notes together here and looking at everything that actually happened on the show, I thought to myself, does this show deserve a lot of the hate that it's getting? Because it is getting a lot of hate. It's not universal hate, but it's getting a lot of hate. So I decided to make a list of positives. I said, let's list all of the positives of this show and see how many we can rack up here. And when I look at this list that I put together here, these bullet points, Sheamus and Cesaro, they had a damn good match. Charlotte and Sasha, I thought, had a good match, despite a lot of the rough spots. And there were a lot of rough spots. This was not a perfect match, and we'll talk about that. But they had a good match. John Cena and AJ Styles, they had a match of the year caliber effort, with AJ Styles winning clean and being put over like $1 million. We had the Demon. The Demon did, in fact, win in his debut, which was the right move. We got a more aggressive, ass-kicking version of Roman Reigns, which I've always said ass-kicking Roman is the best Roman, even though I hated everything else about what they did there. And we got a lot of blood in the main event. Lots of blood. Not like a trickle of blood, okay? Lots of it pouring out of Randy Orton's skull. And blood, when used, sparingly, we don't see it too often. We definitely don't see blood like this very often. When we do, it can go a long way. It's very impactful. So when you look at that list, that's a thumbs up show right there. And yet, I did not come away thinking this was a thumbs up show. I came away from it scratching my head at just a lot of these finishes. And also, at how damn long this show was. And I said that going in. I said this has 13, 14 matches, something like that. I think 13. It didn't need that many matches. They tried to squeeze everybody onto the show like it was WrestleMania. And it felt like this show, between the pre-show and SummerSlam itself, had more matches than WrestleMania. It was a long, long show. And it affected the crowd as it went on. You saw it. I don't know, you watching at home, if you felt the same way. I probably would have gotten tired sitting in front of my TV watching this for 5.5 hours, or what felt like 5.5 hours. And I think that was the biggest thing, though. I mean, to sit there for 4 hours or 5 hours, whatever it was, if you were in your seat for the opening match, that's 5 hours. For the show to end after 5 hours, the way that it did with those last two finishes back to back like that, to just go off the air, was completely fucking stupid. And it left people feeling underwhelmed. Like, after all of that, this is how it ends. I mean, they made a lot of the right moves. You would want the new guy to go over in the champ, even if you thought that it's too soon for Balor. I can't fault them. I can't hate on them putting the championship on the new guy. They're getting a new guy over. Great. The Demon won in his first match. Great. The right guy won in the Cena match. Great. Roman's an ass kicker. Great. All of those things. But in the end, it felt like an underwhelming show. And to me, that's the story of SummerSlam 2016. One of the most disappointing thumbs-up shows that I've ever seen. I really liked the new set. I thought it looked cool. I could go either way on those new LED ring posts. I think it's unnecessary, but they love shit like that, so whatever. I'm indifferent towards them. We had pretty good seats. We were sitting where we were in the front row of our section. So if you picture the hard camera, we were on the same side with the hard camera, but to the left. And we're in the front row, so I look down, and right in front of us are all of the international announcers. They have all the little international booths lined up right next to each other. Portuguese commentary, Japanese, Russian, French, German. They're all lined up. So Funaki was, of course, on the Japanese team. He was sitting right in front of us. I missed the first two matches. I did not see them because I was still at our meetup. That's how long that went. I was at the bar for like 4.5 hours. And I know that American Alpha, the Usos, and the Hype Bros won in the opening match against Febreze, the Ascension, and the Vaudevillains. American Alpha hit their finish. The Usos tagged in and stole the pin, which did not seem to please Jordan and Gable very much, so they're teasing that as a program. And really, it's the best possible match they could do on that SmackDown brand. I think the Usos and American Alpha can have some kick-ass matches. The only question is, do the Usos go heel for it? I can't tell you if they were showing heel tendencies here, because I didn't see the match. I just know that they stole the pin and they won. I say yes. I say you turn them. They're already getting booed, so you may as well just run with it. And that's what I would do. Sami Zayn and Neville beat the Dudley Boys. More miscommunication between Bubba and Devon, so they're on the verge of breaking up. That's very apparent. Hopefully Bubba gets a singles run. He gets to channel some of that Bully Ray in WWE. I think he could be a solid mid-card guy on the roster. Devon, I just don't see anything for him. I just don't. I still think it's a slap in the face that coming off the best match at the last pay-per-view, Sami Zayn was relegated to a tag match, a meaningless, thrown-together tag match on the pre-show. At least he got to wrestle. They could have left him off altogether. I almost wonder if it would have been better off just to leave him off at that point. But it's a shame they didn't have something more for him. So, I got to my seat just in time for match 1 in the best-of-7 series between Sheamus and Cesaro. I had Sheamus winning this in my predictions because Cesaro won the last 2 matches, and just made sense that Sheamus needed a win, and indeed, Sheamus got a win. He won clean with the Brogue Kick to go up 1-0 in the series. I thought they had a very good match. In fact, I would go as far as to say that they had either the second or third best match on the entire show. Not necessarily in terms of crowd heat, because they were quiet for the first half or so, but in terms of the work itself, the match itself, I thought it was top 3 out of the entire show. And the crowd did pick up in those last few minutes. Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens against Enzo, Amore, and Big Cass. They opened the pay-per-view portion, the actual SummerSlam portion of the show. Enzo and Cass had the crowd in the palm of their hand in their pre-match routine. They're awesome. Although the crowd also did love it when Owens was mocking Enzo during the match, because Kevin Owens is awesome. Everybody in this match is awesome. Jericho, I guess they call themselves, they won. Kevin Owens went to give Enzo the pop-up powerbomb into a code breaker by Chris Jericho, and that was a nasty landing for Enzo on that code breaker. I thought he got knocked out. So they lose in Brooklyn to Enzo and Cass, which I figured they would. I said they would, because of course they would. That's just how they do things. Wasn't really a hard prediction to make. Sasha Banks and Charlotte for the Women's Championship. I was very surprised to see this go on this early in the show, but when you consider how tired the crowd got as the night went on, it was probably the best place for it. There was a very ugly spot, botch, whatever you want to call it, early in the match. Charlotte had Sasha up on the ropes. She was going for a kind of like a backbreaker in a way, and Charlotte's, or Sasha, I should say, her head missed the ropes, but her legs hit the ropes, and it folded her in half on the way down, and she just landed right on the back of her head and neck. She seems to have an affinity for doing that, for landing or nearly landing on her head and neck, which, I made a comment. I sent out a tweet during the match. I said, I'm convinced that she will have to retire by the time she's 30. If she's still wrestling by 30, I'd be shocked. And I hope I'm wrong, but I'd be shocked. And spots like that won't help her very much. There was another scary move in this match, but also very impressive. They pulled it off. Was Charlotte going for like a razor's edge? She was standing on the second rope. She had Sasha up in a razor's edge position up on the ropes, and on the way down, Sasha turned it into a Hurricane Rana. I remember Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio doing that move. I'm absolutely positive that it was a Sasha Banks idea, given her love for Eddie Guerrero. And I was stunned by the finish. Skipping ahead to the finish here, there were some near falls. There at the end down the stretch. Sasha got her in the bank statement. Charlotte was able to kind of roll over and reverse it into a pinfall, and she got the win. Charlotte regains the Women's Championship. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned by that. Sasha had to be helped to the back, even when the segment ended and they went to whatever the commercial was and the arena went dark. They had two referees help her to the back. She was really just dropping down to her knees as she was walking, favoring her back. Her back seemed to be what was bothering her. And there were a lot of rumors in the arena, a lot of rumors in our section, people checking their phones saying, hey, she was taken off all of the live events for the next 30 days. Is she going to be suspended? Is she legitimately hurt? She's not, as far as I can tell, she's not being suspended. There's no wellness violation or anything like that. PW Insider had a report up on their website. Pro Wrestling Sheet, I saw, had something up on theirs. I don't know who broke what, but apparently Sasha is hurting. She has an injury or some injuries, and she requested time off to heal up from said injuries. And this was a planned finish. This was not an audible that was called because of an injury suffered during the match on that ugly spot early on, for example. And it may well be a back injury that she has. But she was hurt coming into this match, and she asked for time off, and they granted it. And so that's why they did the title change. And I guess in 30 days or so, Sasha is expected back. She shouldn't be out for months on end or anything like that. She'll come back in about a month, and I'm sure she will resume her feud with Charlotte. But the finish shocked the hell out of me. It really did. I was not expecting the title to come off of her so quickly. But if she's hurt, then she's hurt. It makes sense. What are you going to do? Backstage, they had a segment with AJ Styles reuniting with the club, being that we had both brands backstage. We had a club reunion, and then they pan out and we see Finn Balor. Not the Demon, just regular old Finn Balor. Place popped huge when they saw him on screen. I think most of the people in the building knew exactly what the history was between him and Anderson and Gallows. Hopefully the announcers, Michael Cole or whoever, took the time to explain it to people watching. But Balor looked at them. They tried to do the too sweet sign, all three of them, and he just smiled, Balor did, and walked off. And I thought at that moment, to myself, holy shit, they might actually go with the idea that I pitched, which is doing something of a double turn in the Universal title match and having the club come out and help Balor win. And man, that would be cool and kind of creative to see it. And this was not a creative night. If you were expecting creativity and outside the box thinking from WWE tonight, this was not the night for you. We had The Miz and Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental Championship. Maryse looked amazing in her outfit. And that was about the only thing worthwhile about this match. Apollo Crews lost clean in the middle of the ring to the skull-crushing finale. He hit his head on the ring post when he went for a splash in the corner. He got laid out, and he got pinned. And my only guess is that they're saving a title change for the first SmackDown brand pay-per-view, which I believe is Backlash on September 11th, I believe. But Apollo Crews came off here looking very weak. And like just another guy. And The Miz beat him, and now it's on to the next guy. And I don't think it is on to the next guy. I think they will have a rematch, and Crews may well win. But that's what it came off as here. This was... in a lot of ways, this was also a stunning finish. Maybe not as stunning as the women's finish, but this was stunning to me. I thought for sure they would do a title change here. And not only did they not do a title change, Miz, the chicken shit heel that he usually is, he didn't cheat. There was a brief distraction by Maryse, but it didn't even really factor into the finish. He just won clean. And good for the Miz. I do like Miz and Maurice as a combo. It's not like I'm hating on them. I think as an act, they're very entertaining. But I just thought Apollo Crews is this guy who's on the ascent, and he did not come across very well here at all. We had John Cena and AJ Styles. This was an outstanding match. I love this match so much, and I could see where some people maybe didn't like it quite as much. They relied a lot on kicking out of finishing moves and near falls, and I mean, there are people that don't like that Shawn Michaels Undertaker match at WrestleMania 25 that I love for that very same reason. Oh, they just kicked out of a bunch of moves, and what's so special about that? You know what? Sometimes it just works. Sometimes it just works. And the crowd, from the moment the bell rang, dueling chants, crowd was loud, the building was rocking. They were louder for that match than anything else on the entire show. And I thought both guys, Cena and AJ, AJ always delivers. AJ is maybe the best in the world. I think you can make the argument that if he isn't the best, he's certainly top 3. AJ Styles, one of the best in the entire world. John Cena, he can hang with the best. When he's in there with somebody like AJ Styles, he doesn't miss a beat. He's right there for the whole thing. I didn't have to hear the spot calling. I saw the tweets. Apparently Cena's spot calling was every bit as bad as it usually is. It wasn't quite so loud that I could hear it from my section, so at least I didn't have to hear that. But I have nothing bad to say about this match. They hit their moves. They kicked out of AA. Cena kicked out of a Styles Clash. Cena kicked out of the phenomenal forearm, which I didn't like when it happened. But they were telling a story here. And the story they were telling was no matter what John Cena did, he could not put this guy down. So many times in the past we've seen John Cena, countless times, we have seen John Cena in the second or the third match of a feud, the kind of the not the penultimate, but the ultimate final match that you would think John Cena is having in this program with this person. Surely John Cena is going to win. He will triumph, right? Good over evil. How many fucking times have we seen that in the last 10, 12, 13 years with this guy? And here he is, no matter what he does, he performed an AA off the top rope or the middle rope. And I don't know that anybody's ever kicked out of that. That's usually curtains when he hits that. And AJ Styles kicked out. And they had this great close-up camera shot of John Cena's face. And John Cena had this really stupid look on his face, but he had this look of shock. What do I have to do to put this guy away? And then it's almost like he got angry. And he got AJ up on his shoulders for another AA, and AJ wiggled out of it, and he ended up hitting a Styles Clash again. And then he hit the forearm, but he took his elbow pad off. And he hit John Cena with the phenomenal forearm, and he pinned him clean 1, 2, 3. And the place went nuts. People were jumping with joy over what they had just seen. I was jumping with joy, because for a change, WWE did the right thing. Even if John Cena was not taking time off, which he is, and I'm sure that's why they did this, but even if he wasn't taking time off to go film his TV show or whatever it is that he's going to be doing, and I'm not even sure he'll be on the next pay-per-view, it was still the right move to make, because AJ Styles is somebody who is going to be challenging for the championship. You have a brand split. AJ is one of the top stars on the SmackDown brand. He has to be kept strong. He has to be kept special. There aren't very many guys who can say that they did what he did, which is beat John Cena twice in singles matches. I know CM Punk did. I mean, some people have done it. But even in Punk's case, in the match that he had with Cena and Money in the Bank in Chicago, Vince and John Laurinaitis came out. And it provided a distraction, and when he got back in the ring, Punk hit the GTS and he pinned him. So it was clean, but not really. It really wasn't clean, right? And they had the match at SummerSlam. John Cena got his foot on the ropes. Triple H didn't see it. Well, Punk won, but wasn't really clean. So even CM Punk never got the chance to beat John Cena twice in a row with that last win being clean. But AJ Styles, Mr. TNA, right? For all those years, the face of TNA, the franchise of TNA, goes over John Cena clean to, I assume, I hope, end this feud. Because it would just make sense to move on to Ambrose and Styles for the championship, which is what I hope and I assume they're going to do. So this was incredible for so many different reasons. You know why it was also incredible? Two things. First of all, there was somebody who tweeted me, and I didn't know this. So I apologize for not taking the person's name down to give them credit. But they pointed out something I did not realize, which is that John Cena has now lost his last 6 SummerSlam matches. He has not won a match at SummerSlam since, ironically, a match he should have lost, which was the win over the Nexus in 2010. Every single SummerSlam match since then, he has come up on the losing end, which is, I thought, a very interesting fact. But the other thing that's incredible about this, and I did tweet this, what this match shows, this match was an incredible endorsement of AJ Styles by the company. They have already put AJ Styles in some very high-profile positions in just his first few months with the company. He headlined 2 pay-per-views. He put over Roman Reigns, right? That's what they used him for. We got to put Roman Reigns over. So he went out there and he did that. And he got 2 pay-per-view main events out of it. He got a win over John Cena. Now, it was tainted because the club ran out, but still, he beat John Cena. And here he beat him clean. This, to me, was the biggest endorsement yet in the 8 months that he's been with the company of how they view AJ Styles. They view him as a top player. They view him as, one of their top 3 or 5 elite guys in the entire company. And I think it's tremendous. I really do. I think it's tremendous that they could look past where he came from and him being an indie guy or him being almost 40 years old. They see what they have in this guy and they're running with it. And it's what I wish they would do with guys like Samoa Joe, and I hope they do when Joe eventually comes up. I hope they don't look at his age and all of that as being a hindrance, because these guys can still go out there and perform at a very high level. They can make money, they can get over, they can be big, big stars for the company, despite who they are, how old they are, and where they came from. And to me, this was the biggest endorsement yet of AJ Styles by the company. We had the New Day against Anderson and Gallows for the WWE Tag Team titles. Jon Stewart came out to be in the New Day's corner and effectively take Big E's place, because Big E was still out suffering from his broken balls. And he did make his big return here on the show as Anderson and Gallows were about to crotch Jon Stewart in the corner. Big E came out, the New Day music hit, and he came out, got his team disqualified because he attacked Anderson and Gallows, and Big E technically was not part of this match. So the referee called for the bell. He ran out in full gear. He was dressed for a wrestling match. And I watched this and I said, this makes absolutely no sense, because if this guy was in the back, suited up in full gear and ready to go, then why the fuck wasn't he out there with his team with the tag team titles up for grabs here? The tag team titles are on the line. They're at stake. And what? He's just in the back waiting for his cue, waiting for the right moment to go run out. I thought that was incredibly stupid. I thought the finish was stupid. Look, the crowd was happy to see Big E. They got the crowd into it. But I thought as a finish, this was incredibly dumb. Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler for the WWE Championship. Speaking of incredibly dumb, you know what? I can't say it was a dumb finish. There were dumb things they did. This was not dumb, but this was very, very disappointing. And it came out of nowhere. I don't know how long this match went. Maybe it went a good 12, 15 minutes, but it felt very abrupt, the finish. Like it just came out of nowhere. And I would be upset about it, but as I said on Twitter, it's Dolph Ziggler. And at this point, I just can't muster up the energy to care. I just can't. They did their best the last few weeks. They really did. And I didn't think he was winning. I had Ambrose winning this, but I did think that, he would go out there and they would tear down the house and he would put in this incredible effort and they'd have this great match, and maybe there would be a turn at the end. Maybe out of frustration, Dolph would attack him, or they would pair him off with somebody like a Kevin Nash or a Baron Corbin, because I still feel like he needs someone with him. He needs a bodyguard. He needs a heavy. He needs to go heel, because Dolph Ziggler, the show-off, he's a heel. He's a heel by nature. He's been doing the babyface thing for so long, it's gotten him nowhere. He had his one big moment when Roman got hurt, and we talked about this actually on the Sound Off this weekend. Effectively, what Dolph Ziggler was a couple of years ago when Roman had the hernia, and Dolph took his place in that Survivor Series match when Sting came out, and Dolph was the sole survivor for his team. he was effectively the understudy. It's like when you go to a Broadway show and let's say, you have Bruce Willis is going to be the star of the show. But on occasion, Bruce Willis is not going to be performing. And so in Bruce Willis's place, we have his understudy. And it's some no-name you never heard of before. And you're all pissed off and upset. And Dolph Ziggler was effectively the understudy for Roman Reigns in that match. And I fell for it. I thought, this is going to be the start of something big for Dolph. And of course it wasn't. So start and stop and start and stop and start and stop after God knows how many years. It's no wonder that I just can't muster up the energy to give a shit. But this match, this whole thing, was completely disappointing. I had high hopes for this match. I really did. I thought that the build-up to this was some of the best work and some of the best build-up for any of the matches on this show. And the promos back and forth, I thought it was really, really good stuff the last few weeks on SmackDown. And I thought that they completely just crapped the bed with this whole thing. And the way it ended, there was nothing special at all about this match. And Dolph Ziggler just looks like a defeated man. He really, I was watching him as he walked to the back. They had already gone to the next segment. And the arena was dark. And I just watched him. I watched his body language as he went to the back. He just looks like somebody who's just had whatever passion he had just completely beaten out of him. And it's just, it is what it is. I really was disappointed by this match. I got to tell you, just the finish was, they were up on the top rope. We've seen Dolph do this move a million times, where off the top he does kind of the old X-Pac face smash, whatever the hell, I forgot the name of it. X Factor, whatever it is. But instead they landed on their feet. Both guys did. And Ambrose just gave him dirty deeds. And he pinned him. 1, 2, 3. So Dolph was just nothing more than a placeholder to get Ambrose, hopefully to AJ Styles. I really hope that's the next match they have in mind. Later in the show, they had a bit of product placement. They showed Dolph Ziggler dressed up as Colonel Sanders. It was a KFC commercial. And he's dressed up as Colonel Sanders with the mustache and everything. And he's wrestling The Miz, who is dressed in a chicken suit. And I just watched this coming off this match, and I thought to myself, this perfectly sums up Dolph Ziggler's career in WWE. It really does. The guy is treated like a joke. And, look, the finish went as I expected it to. The match did not. The match really, really let me down. Naomi, Carmella, and Becky Lynch against Natalya, Alexa Bliss, and the returning Nikki Bella. As predicted, by the way, on Sound Off 457. They did kind of do the idea also what we talked about on the podcast where they introduced Eva Marie. They did her whole intro with her narrator. But then they said she wasn't there. They did not go all the way with it and say that she was suspended. And I don't know why they wouldn't. They announced it on WWE.com. The way I look at it, if you announce this shit on your own website, then it's fair game to mention it on TV. It's not like this was reported by a dirt sheet or a newsletter. It was on their own fucking website. But they didn't mention the suspension. They could have even said she's taking a 30-day vacation. They didn't even do that. They said she was suffering from exhaustion and that she was taking a vacation in the British Isles. I still thought this was funny. This was entertaining. But I wish they would have gone all the way with it. And I also have to say this, I really like Naomi's entrance. I got to give her credit here. I like that entrance a lot. I just thought it was very cool. The match itself was okay. Nothing special. Nikki Bella pinned Carmella after a TKO, which is her new finish since the Rack Attack fucked up her neck, so she won't be doing that anymore. So Nikki, not surprisingly, gets the win. Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, the Demon King. They're calling him now Finn Balor, the Demon King. And it's terrible because it's so similar to the Demon Kane that every time they say the Demon King, I think they're saying Demon Kane. So that's why it's terrible. And not that the gimmick is. I mean, it's a cool name, but it's just too close to Kane. And I also fear that at some point we're going to get well, actually, I guess they're on separate brands, so we don't have to worry about the Demon King against the Demon Kane. As long as they're on separate brands, then we're okay. So this was to crown the first ever Universal Champion, which is, by the way, that title is universally hated by the WWE Universe. And for good reason. The belt looks fucking terrible. I expected them to use the same basic design. They love the big gaudy logo. They love doing that. But it's got red, literally red all over. Not like in the center plate. The whole fucking thing is red. I've taken shits that look better than that belt. And I think it would have been fine for Eva Marie if you were to create a custom title like Stone Cold had the Smoking Skull belt, right? If Eva Marie didn't get suspended, it was pretty obvious to me that she was probably on her way to becoming the first ever SmackDown Women's Champion whenever they decide to introduce the new title, which they will. And it would have made sense for that to maybe be her custom title. I mean, it still would have been ugly, but at least it would have made sense. Everybody in our section was joking that the loser of this match should be the one to be awarded with that title. And it ruined the first half of the match. It really did, because there were tons of "that belt sucks" chants. Then they sang it to the tune of John Cena's theme. And then they set it to the New Day Rocks beat. They were saying, "That belt sucks," over and over again. Then came the chants of "delete, delete, delete." It was actually very funny, I have to say. And where we were sitting, we were in the front row of our section. And right below us were a lot of the production people on their MacBooks. They all have MacBooks. Every single one of them has a MacBook. And we could see one of them, they were scrolling through Twitter on their phone, looking at pictures of the belt and laughing. They were laughing at all the jokes that people were making about the new belt. And these are their own people laughing at tweets about the championship. What does that tell you? I thought that was hilarious. The match itself, I thought it was a very good match. Not outstanding or anything like that. I think these two are capable of a lot better. But it was a very good match, despite all of the chants. Very straightforward. No turns, no swerves, no Balor Club, nothing. Rollins gave Balor a powerbomb into the barricade early in the match. I couldn't tell from where I was sitting, but there were people saying it looked like Balor may have gotten hurt on that move. Bret Hart was no doubt sitting at home, shaking his head in disgust. Later on, he gave Balor this fisherman's DDT move is the best way I can describe it. Maybe he got hurt on that. I don't know. Point is, Balor won clean with the coup de grace off the top rope to become the first ever Universal Champion. And not once did he raise that title into the air when he was in the ring. He may have when he left the ring, but when he was in the ring, he went to each corner, he posed on the ropes. Not one time did he raise the title over his head like everybody does. And I figured they must have said to him, don't do it, because they didn't want him to get booed. Because every time they showed that belt on camera, it got loud boos. But then I see, according to PWInsider.com this morning, they have a report up, Finn Balor may have in fact suffered a serious arm injury during that match, and there is a very real fear in WWE that he may need surgery. Now, his arm was in a sling backstage after the match. It would be a disaster if they lost him for any length of time, considering how hard they pushed him so far, to the point where he just debuted on TV and now he's their champion. If he does go down and needs surgery, they're going to have to get that belt off of him. Now, he did appear on Good Morning America this morning. He made a media appearance. I think Charlotte was on there too. He did not have his arm in a sling. There was no mention of any injury. Maybe it's not as bad as they initially feared. We'll find out tonight on Raw, I guess, if they do some sort of angle or a match to get that belt off of him. I guess we'll find out very soon. Seth Rollins was a bit salty after the match about the crowd chanting about the crappy belt. He said, "More important than a title's appearance is what it represents for the men fighting over it. You really let me down tonight, Brooklyn." End quote. I can understand his frustration, but to that I say this. They can chant about the fucking belt if they want to. You know, they love getting fan feedback. Well, there's your fan feedback. Okay, you don't need to go on social media and bitch about it. Roman Reigns and Rusev for the United States Championship. Roman Reigns headlines over both World and Universal Championship matches here on this show. He is still the big dog. Rusev jumped him before the bell rang. He beat him up outside the ring. Roman made a comeback. He lost his mind. He just started beating the shit out of Rusev to the point where referees had to run down and pull him off. And the match never got started. There was no match. Crowd hated this. Although when Roman came back out and he speared the hell out of Rusev on the floor, that got a big pop. Now, on the plus side, I much prefer aggressive ass-kicking Roman Reigns. That being said, this was fucking terrible. This was so ass backwards. This is what they should have done on Raw last Monday to hype the title match on the pay-per-view. Now, maybe they don't want to put the title on Roman because it's beneath him. I didn't think he was winning the championship. I figured he'd win the match, but not the title. Instead, on TV 6 days before the pay-per-view, they gave away a 20-minute main event between the two guys here, and Reigns beat him clean in the middle. So we got no U.S. title match. Keep that in mind, by the way, when we talk about this next match, because this is one of the reasons I thought this was terrible. On its own, doing this on the SummerSlam card I thought was fucking terrible. But what made it even worse was what came next. So we had Brock Lesnar against Randy Orton. They headlined the show. This was exactly the kind of match you would expect from Brock Lesnar. Suplex City. Only it did not look like Orton was giving him much help. So Brock had to power him over each time. It didn't look good. They did a spot where Orton gave Lesnar an RKO on the announce table, which didn't break. He gave Brock the draping DDT on the ropes. He gave Brock an RKO in the ring. Brock kicked out. Orton set up for the punt kick. Brock caught him. He delivered an F5 for a near fall. So Brock took off his gloves at this point. When he does that, you know that means that shit's about to go down. That's going to be bad news for Randy Orton. And it was. Brock opened him up hard way with elbows to the head. Blood was leaking out of Randy Orton's head. You can see the voices. The voices were pouring out of Randy Orton's head along with the blood. The doctors rushed into the ring to tend to Orton. Brock kept going back and pounding on him and more forearms and hammer fists and just everything. They rang the bell. They awarded the match to Brock by TKO. Shane McMahon ran down to try to stop Lesnar from beating up one of his top guys. Brock gave Shane an F5, which I'm sure will lead to a suspension in storyline to explain Brock taking off the next 6 months, right? I could see as a make good for having assaulted the SmackDown commissioner, having Stephanie and Mick Foley on Raw go ahead and suspend Brock Lesnar. I fully expect that. Orton needed 10 staples to close the wound in his head. I enjoyed the violence. I enjoyed the blood. I hated that finish. We saw the exact same thing in Brock's first match back against John Cena. Elbows to the head. Blood pouring out of his head. Maybe not quite as much as Orton, but still. Bloodied him up with those vicious elbows. And the referee had to come in and try to wipe the cut and close the cut. This was back in 2012. And they let the match continue. Here, they called it off. And that's how they went off the air. Crowd chanted for Goldberg. They thought he was coming out. He never did. I never thought he was. So I wasn't... I'm not upset because Goldberg didn't come out. It's not like my expectations were too high. Maybe my expectations were high. Even if you take Goldberg out of the picture, I expected more. So maybe that's my fault. The way they built this match up, it was the main event at the end of this very long show. Maybe I was expecting more. Maybe that's my fault. But I thought this was a totally anticlimactic way to end the show. And what makes it worse, and this goes back to the point I was making before, you look back at those last two matches, Reigns and Rusev, which wasn't even a match. Look what they did there and look what they did here. The final two matches on this show, one never even got started. It just ends because one guy is kicking too much ass. And the very next match ends because the other guy is kicking too much ass. That's what really left me feeling underwhelmed. That's why, when you look on paper at what we got, I call it a thumbs-up show that left me feeling completely underwhelmed and even a little pissed off, to be perfectly honest with you. Just no real creativity on any of the finishes. Ambrose and Ziggler, very basic. Dirty deeds, 1, 2, 3. Balor and Rollins, pretty straightforward. Coup de grace, 1, 2, 3. Reigns and Rusev, just nonsense. Lesnar and Orton, left much to be desired. Cena and Styles knocked it out of the ballpark. Okay, having the heel go over clean on John Cena, no less. That definitely was something out of left field for WWE. Even though I am proud to say that I did pick Styles to win that match. Some people thought I was nuts. I know a lot of people didn't pick AJ Styles for that match, and some people did, and so that I was happy to see that. And they had every right not to. If you were one of the people that just laughed at the notion of AJ Styles winning that match, you had every right not to pick AJ Styles if you've seen any of John Cena's feuds over the last 13 years. So I give them a lot of credit for doing the right thing in that match. But on virtually everything else, they had the potential to shake things up, even just a little bit. And on that, they failed. And there was an after party, a little get-together nearby with Sheamus. Justin LaBar was hosting. He tweeted me about the event. I didn't even know about it, so I headed over there. It was nice to meet him for the first time. Also, shout out to JD from New York. We got to shoot the shit for a little bit. So, at least we ended the night on a high note. I could see just watching this from home and turning the TV off and being very upset. But at least for us, the night ended on a high note. But this will not go down as one of the better SummerSlam shows of all time. Maybe one of the most frustrating. Maybe the most frustrating. But far from the best. So leave your comments down below. Let me know. Do you agree? Were you as underwhelmed with SummerSlam as I was? And if so, what would you have done differently? Because we can come up with 1,000,001 different ideas of what they could have done. And it's just a shame they didn't go with any of them. Right? I mean, look, we all fantasy book this shit from time to time. We all have ideas in our head of what we'd like to see. And WWE can't possibly do that. They can't possibly give us what we want to see every single time. But I've never seen a card on paper with this many big matches up and down. And you just look at what they did. And you look at these finishes. And in a lot of cases, it just leaves you scratching your head. And just so much wasted potential here on this show. It's just very disappointing. So, with that, I bid you adieu. Please keep spreading the word about the Sound Off. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you are not already subscribed. That way, when new content goes up, you will be alerted. If you look elsewhere here on this channel, you'll see a bunch of new stuff. I do the Sound Off Gamer series, of course. I'm terrible. You can watch me be very shitty as I play WWE 2K16. But there's some great interviews, real quality stuff up here, too. I got an interview with Diamond Dallas Page, Bob Holly, who gave me almost 90 minutes of really good stuff. And it's something different. You go from DDP to Bob Holly to Bill Apter. Bill Apter, who spent 45 years in the wrestling business and has spoken with every promoter of note going back, 30, 40 years. Just a fascinating guy to talk to. And he gave me, almost 50 minutes of his time, and we did that interview last week. So all of that is up here on the YouTube channel. So watch it, share it, like it. We'll be back soon with a brand new extra, of course, brand new episode of the podcast going up this Sunday as normal. That'll be episode 458. So until then, be well, stay safe, and we'll see you back here again real soon. Take care, guys.